Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Patricia Monna Intuitive Consulting. Thank you so much, Susan Reynolds, my lovely soul sister, who has come on almost, I think it's a year now that we've been
In a
doing this. I'm
year?
pretty sure it was February or January that we started doing
You're
this.
right. I
Yeah,
think it was February.
I
I
think
think it was
so.
February. And
So
it was
now
like so casual. Like, why don't you just, come and talk about astrology? I was like, sure.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because as you know, I know nothing about astrology, and being able to do remote viewing on what's coming up and test the pulse in the psychic sense. I love that what you see also, it totally vibes in what's out there that's happening that we're both picking up on. So thank you once again for joining me, Susan. I love it. Next month we're gonna have to celebrate our 1 year anniversary.
So I have to do something special for that. It's so enjoyable to me to see us come to the same answer from two totally different perspectives. And it's
Yes.
like, you got that? Yeah, I got that. Like, people will not believe we never talk about this ahead of time. We just get on and we see what's ever going to happen happens. And we always seem to vibe and be on the same page, even if our talents and specialties are different.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show that there is a universal energy that we can tune into in so many different ways and be able to draw the same conclusions or speak the same language at the end of the day. So, wow. Well, let's get started. Let's dive
Okay.
in. So this is for the month of February 2024. Susan, would you like to go first on what's in the stars?
Well, I'm going to remind people of the big news and the big change, which was on January 21st, we had Pluto moving into Aquarius.
Mm.
And this is big, big, big because we have never experienced this before. And so that was just, very recently, like a week ago, if we're looking at February. So that moved in. And on January 20th, we had the sun move into Aquarius as well. So right now we have the sun and Pluto bumping up against each other. And so Pluto is all about power and it's all about transformation. So whether you are consciously aware of this energy coming in or not, we are looking ahead at our lives this year and looking at what do I want to be when I grow up? What kind of changes do I want to make? Before we started this conversation, you and I were talking about you're going to make some changes. You're splitting some things up. You're doing some things differently. This is that Aquarius energy, which is so exciting. Now, I will say a week ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago, I did a talk, just an hour talk specifically all about Pluto and Aquarius. And I know I've mentioned it here, so I don't want to belabor that. And I do want to talk about other things. But if you want to hear the talk, you can go to my website and order it. But here in February is when we begin to see the very, very small, teeny tiny steps that we're going to start to take to bring in this new energy. We're going to see it in our personal lives. We're going to see it in our professional life. We're going to see it in our nation, and we're going to see it in the world. And I love this because we're starting to see energies break open and start to move. Where last year they were all stuck. Last year we had so much earth energy. Nothing was really moving. Nothing was getting done. A lot of people would tell me how frustrated they felt. But right now, this new Aquarian energy comes in and boom, we start saying, I can do this, I can do that, I want to move here, I want to do this, I'm gonna, and it's fun. It's nice when we see our lives getting bigger.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is that the kind of thing that are you sensing any of that?
100%. It's interesting that you say that because 2024, I see it as an action year. And when I was testing the energy of January and February, they do feel a little bit slower. So the way you're describing it in little pieces coming out, right? And then I can feel that March, April, May that we were talking about last month, that kind of mounting excitement of energy of things opening up, and then it becomes easier to manifest. So yeah, so February, I kind of felt like it was, yes, little drips and drabs coming where you're starting to see little, doorways of opportunity, but it's not quite there yet. So that stuck energy of the last, I want to say 6 months was like that,
It's
because
been a while.
I pull it all the way back to, well, I guess not 6 months, not 6 months. It doesn't go that far back. I would say about October. I started to feel a bit of a heaviness September, October,
I was
November.
going to say September, some of this
Yeah,
started getting pretty bogged down and
in
stuff.
and
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
It had that kind of boggy energy. And January, February still has that kind of get off me boggy energy as well, but not as bad. Not as bad. You're going to notice as we move towards the end of the month, it's going to get easier to breathe, where solutions are just going to naturally come and solve their own problems. It won't be so my heart is beating fast, and I don't know what I'm going to do, because the last few months a lot of people have were stuck in that, they fed into that energy. And that's the thing that people got to be aware of. Observe, do not absorb. Don't absorb what you're feeling if it's heavy out there right now, because people got to remember we are in a spiritual war. We're in a time where the energies are changing, and the old is going to fight and do whatever it can to hold on and drag the new back from walking and opening up those doors of opportunity. So we got to remember, we're still in the sticky stages where it's not smooth sailing yet. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I'm going to apologize if I mentioned this last month, because when we come together in the moment and we do the podcast, and then I forget what I said, So I don't
Me
know if I
too. I have no
mentioned this.
idea.
I don't know if I mentioned this last month or not. But for the last 15 years, we have had Pluto in Capricorn. And Capricorn is about senior citizens, it's about aging, it's about authority, leadership, very structured, sometimes a little rigid.
Mhm.
And so what I hear on the news, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but here I'm hearing a lot on the news about the rise of these new right-wing authoritative dictatorship type countries and governments. And I'm going to disagree with that. They're seeing it as a rise of this, but what I'm seeing is the conflict between the old way of doing things and the new energies that are coming in. The old way is the Capricorn authoritative, I'm the dictator, I'm the king, I'm the you do what I say kind of thing. But this new Aquarian energy is totally different. Aquarius is about independence, freedom, equality. It is a complete antithesis of what we've been dealing with for the last 15, 16 years. So we're seeing the last grasps of, those who are in power don't want to let go of that. And internationally, we're going to see a lot of uprisings. I'm hoping they might just be marches or protests, but it may go violent, because the more repressive the government, the greater the demand for freedom is going to be. I'm going to say we are going to see more people, even in the westernized nations that are traditionally democratic with freedoms. We're going to see them want their voices heard. We're going to see them writing to their government officials. We're going to see them protesting. We're going to see them marching, men, women, old, young, especially young people. Because if Capricorn is about the aging, Aquarius is about the youth. So we're going to start to hear a lot about the youth of today and the youth vote and getting the youth involved in things. It's very much about new. What is new? What is bright, shiny, different? What are we going to explore? So we're going to see this on the news. We're going to see this in our companies trying new things, new computer systems, new technologies, a lot more people wanting to work from home, a lot more gadgets coming on the market that are, like podcasts and YouTube calls and gadgets and phones and what have you. I said something that sounded very space agey when I gave my predictions talk, but I said this energy is going to be here until 2044. And in the next 20 years, we're going to see what I almost call like a hybrid human. That's a human body, but with technological pieces in it. And
Yeah.
to some degree, we see this now. Like we get new hips, we get new knees, we get new shoulders. I said a friend of mine had some sort of blood sugar monitor embedded in her arm that beeped when her blood sugar got too high.
Mhm.
We're going to start to see major technological advances, especially in medicine. I think there's going to be something that's implanted in the base of the brain that helps Alzheimer's or cognitive impairment,
Mhm.
helps Parkinson's, helps Huntington's chorea, things that deal with the electrical systems. And we as a people, a world, a nation, are going to have to decide, just because we can, does that mean we should? Where is the line?
Yeah.
We're going to see major advances in terms of infertility that many women are struggling with. You know, when they started to develop these drugs or IVF, they had to question, is it okay for a woman to give birth to her own granddaughter, you know, because her daughter's infertile? And now many hospitals have like a morals department, like they have to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
So what happens when somebody has a bionic wrist, or somebody has something implanted in their eye where they have perfect vision and you don't? You know, over these next 20 years, we're going to start to see these questions come up. And I don't know that they're easy answers.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, and I pray that this technology doesn't get into the wrong hands either, because it sounds very biblical to me. Honest to God, it
Yes.
does.
Yes.
One of the things that I was shown was that the mark of the beast is a microchip that will be
Oh,
implanted either at the back of the neck, the
what
forehead,
is that?
or the back of the hand. And what will be on that microchip will be everything about you, your dental records, your healthcare records, your speeding records, your driver's records, your criminal record, your SIN number, everything that is you, including, and I truly believe that this microchip will have the ability, this is where the medicine part comes in, to recalibrate your system, because it is a merge of AI and human. And so it will work on the electricity within the body, and it will naturally charge itself. It will be self-regulating, electromagnetic propulsion. Like it's
It's
it
a little
sounds
scary.
well, it sounds so fantastical, or so into the future that it's hard to wrap our brains around it. But what I saw was, technology like that, are we beginning to play God? And then you get Dr. Harara, who I believe that's how you pronounce his name, of the World Economic Forum, the scientists. He said, you think that you have your own privacy within your thoughts, and what goes on inside of your body is private. And he says, no, no. He goes, we will be the God of the future. The AI, the cloud will be the God of the future. And that's scary. That is scary for someone who
Yeah.
does believe in that highest power. That's scary talk to me, and he is all about the microchip. So it's like, who's fueling that agenda? Who, on a spiritual level, is fueling that agenda? It's coming into our reality. And so I pray that that's not the timeline that we're on. I hope I didn't sign up for the Book of Revelations, because I read from the Akashic Records all day long. I just pray that it's not the Book of Revelations I found myself in, but I don't know, it kind of looks that way a little bit,
It's going to be a lot.
yeah, a lot.
Very quickly. 20 years is not a long time.
It really
Think
is.
about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I didn't have a cell phone.
Yes.
20 years ago, I never heard of Zoom.
Yeah,
I
now
don't think
they're in our
Zoom existed.
watches. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't on Facebook. None of these things that we take for granted every day were even thought of at that time. And so, I'm sort of at my technological limit. Like, okay, I'm full. I'm going
Can
to
you
stay
imagine?
here.
You're right. Can you imagine in another 20 years what our reality will look at? It will probably be holographic, TVs and computers and, like I said, well, I don't know if frequency medicine, which actually has been around since Royal Rife down back in the 40s, Tesla, free energy. Um, I don't know if they will allow that type of medicine to be given to humanity until they can find a way to control it and make money off of it. I think there's an evil agenda that they want to turn free energy and frequency healing into something that, you know, that could be only available to certain people, which I think is totally wrong. But yeah, they'll
But
find a
you
way
know
to
what it's always about? Money and power. You
That's
know,
exactly right.
people are always going to want money. There's going to be people who just want money and power.
Oh, speaking of money and power,
Uh-huh.
do you remember? I think it was when I was in England in August that I mentioned, I said, you watch, the banks are closing out and it's getting harder and harder to find ATM machines. Do you remember me talking about that?
Yeah, I remember the banks part. I don't remember
Yeah,
the ATM, but I
banks.
definitely remember the
Well,
banks
yeah,
part.
it's
I
part
remember
of it.
that.
Like it'll be harder and harder to find ATMs because they want us to tap, right? So they can track your purchases, right? Well, one of your biggest banks is filing for bankruptcy this month. JP Morgan Chase, isn't that one of your guys' biggest banks?
It's a big banking industry. Well, it's
Yeah,
not really like
yeah,
your
they're
neighborhood bank, but
filing.
it's banking. Yeah.
They're going to be filing for bankruptcy. Mark my words. I can feel it. And it's like, what's really going on? I think it's because they are creating a new currency, a new way to transfer the wealth. And so you watch, there's going to be more and more where we're hearing these banks going out of business. And as they do, like I said, it'll be harder and harder to find even an ATM machine because they don't want you using an ATM machine. Because the minute you pull out that cash, it's unaccounted for. They want you tapping. So the more that we can use cash, people, honestly, the better we're off. We can hold on to our freedoms that little bit longer. Um, but
You
yeah, so
know, in
there's
January, I did my predictions talk, just like you did your predictions talk, and a lot of them just really meshed. But one of the things I said in my predictions talk was that in the US, we're going to see the government more and more try to promote this digital currency and do
yes,
away with cash.
yes.
Probably the same in Canada. Now, what I also said was Americans are not going to like this. They like their cash. And I think Canadians are the same way, especially people over a certain age, like those over 30 or those over 40. Those who are growing up now are, you know, they're going to go with the tapping. They're
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
used to that.
They
But
use their
those of us who
phones
have
to do it.
had money in our hands and know what that feels like, we are not going to want to give that up. So I definitely see a divide. And I heard a phrase when I was meditating that I didn't understand that I'd never heard before, but it may have been out there all along. I heard one world currency. I've heard of like one
Yes,
world order, but I never heard of
yes.
one world
One world
currency.
currency, 100%. Oh
You've
my
heard
God.
this too? I said, what
Yes,
is that? What the
I've
heck
heard
is
of one.
that?
I've my parents. So my dad was this huge born again Christian, and he was a long distance truck driver, and he knew people in high places all over the government in Canada, all over the governments in the States. And we actually even at his funeral, I had quite a few American politicians drive up because he worked more in the States than he worked in Canada as a long distance truck driver. Well, my dad would bring up information about what was happening with the World Economic Forum and the UN and the World Health Organization. This was back in the 80s. Like I'm talking, I grew up having to watch that stuff. And I would always fall asleep and my dad would be nudging me. You need to watch this. You need to watch this. And I'd get in trouble if I didn't watch it. And I would roll my eyes. At the time, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm a kid. I'm thinking, I didn't even know the term conspiracy theorist. I had no idea what that term was, but at the time, had I known that, I probably would have called him that. And now hearing these terms, it blows my mind, even World Economic Forum, because I've been hearing about these people and Klaus Schwab for years and years and years. Like my dad's been passed for 20 years this year. And he was talking about this when I was a kid growing up, right? So this is how long this playbook has been in action. That's why when people ask me, well, what can we do? What can we do? Don't feed into it. I don't know, because how does our voice count for the ones who are awake and aware? Spread the word. Like that's really all we can do. It's not like we yes, there's power in numbers. So we need to come together, is what I'm saying. How can we change this world? By awakening each other and being prepared in whatever way that looks like to each and every person. But at the same time, how do we stop this big snowball? I don't know, because it's rolling down the mountain.
I don't know that we can stop it, but that doesn't mean the snowball has to roll over us.
Yes,
You've heard me
very true.
mention
Yeah.
Edgar Cayce many times and his teachings and his work. And he was a seer that lived in the 1900s, for those of you who don't know. And he would go into a trance and people would ask him questions, and there was lots of information that he gave. And I remember he said something once that I've never forgotten, because this is back in the 1920s. He said at that time that either the government or the military was doing experiments on mind control. How do you change somebody's mind? How do you make them think the idea is theirs? How do you imprint your will on somebody else's mind? And he said the way to combat that is to make sure you're meditating. He said for the people who are meditating, they will be grounded, they will be stable, they will be more immune to this kind of energy
Yeah.
than if they were not doing that. And I have never forgotten that. And is one of the things I tell people all the time. Don't think that unless you see bells and whistles or somebody appears before you, that your meditation is doing nothing. It's not. It is grounding you. It is lifting you up at the same time. It
Mm.
is helping you to see more clearly. It is helping to open the door to higher energies. To me, it's the single most powerful thing you can do. The single most powerful thing you can do is to make sure you're meditating.
Well, and it's the only way to combat fear, right? It's
Yes.
it really it does. It really changes your vibration. And that's the way that we can change the world, is through our vibration and through what we exude, and become that living
Mhm.
example of what we want to see shifted in the world. I 100% agree with you. And I think that we are here to work on multiple levels of reality and to become that portal in between heaven and earth. So
Yeah.
that we are grounding in those higher frequencies of light, and that those higher wisdoms that humanity really needs. Um, and like I said, not to feed into the fear. That's the biggest thing, is to not feed into the fear. It's just trippy to hear it come out now in my lifetime,
I
because I
bet.
I
I
just
bet.
never thought, that it would be language that the average person would be talking about, because I mean, it was talked about in my house, but if I would have gone over to a friend's place and talked about that at the dinner table, I would have looked like I was crazy. Now
Yeah.
it's, majority of people are figuring out who the World Economic Forum are, and the UN, and one world government, one world currency. Absolutely, that is the goal. And that's biblical, Susan. That's why I'm
Right.
saying I don't know how much of what's coming can be shifted, because that's
Well,
biblical. One world
it's,
currency and one world government.
but just, I agree with you 100% about don't feed into the fear. Don't look at this as something to be frightened of. Look at this as something you came in to live through. You came in to be a light worker. You
Yeah.
came in to have a certain level of awareness. By your light, by your kindness, by your compassion, you are changing the world, and you are holding a higher energy for the world. These energies coming in, especially in February, are full of change. And so, what I'm encouraging people to do is allow change into your life. And it doesn't have to be in big ways. You don't need to leave the country, get a new home, start a new career. It does not have to be massive change to be effective. The more you're frightened of change and resist it, it's like the more that pressure builds up. But if you allow change to come in small little bursts, it's like a pressure cooker, opening up the lid a little bit and relieving the pressure. So think about doing new things in February. Try a restaurant you've never been to, move the furniture around, buy a piece of clothing that doesn't look like you, buy a book, read a book that's out of your norm, go down a different road, work different hours, explore. The more that you can do this on your terms, the more you're opening up a pathway. Instead of blocking it, you're opening up a pathway for positive change to come in. Because change on our terms is powerful and positive. We just get upset when it runs us over. And February, oh my God, February has so much Aquarian energy in it. Remember, we have a new moon. I think it's on February 6th. Yeah. So on February 6th, we have a new moon in Aquarius. That means the sun is in Aquarius and the moon is also in Aquarius. So we get a new moon when the sun and the moon are in the same sun and they're sitting right next to each other. They're a couple. They're joined. And we get like a double dose of that energy because the sun is symbolic of our outer self. How do we express ourselves? How do we engage with other people? And the moon is more expressive of our inner self. What gives us security? How do we feel about things? And so it's a nice time when our outer self and our inner self can be on the same page. We're not in conflict with one another, but they're both going to be in Aquarius. And so think about this. If our moon is our emotional response and Aquarius is sudden, unexpected things, we may find ourselves having a totally out of the blue, wild emotional response to something that may just take us by surprise. It's like, what do you mean you're out of fries? I demand fries right now. I paid for those fries. And part of you is standing outside yourself, looking at yourself, going, what is wrong with you? Why are you so upset about this? But our emotions may just spill over in ways that surprise us. And so the more you're able to normally share your emotions, the easier this is going to be. But for somebody who's maybe a little bit more locked down, a little bit more in control of their emotions, excuse me, this Aquarian energy comes in and goes, we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing till we get a reaction, push, 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 and boom. So even if this isn't you, it may be somebody around you. This may be a spouse. This may be a child. This may be, somebody coming home and going, if you leave your socks on the floor one more time, I'm going to burn this house down and kill you. You're like, oh my God, I had no idea. She was so upset about this, or he was so upset about that. But it's these sort of extreme emotional reactions coming out. So other people's emotions may take you by surprise. Your emotions may take you by surprise. But during that period of a new moon, you give it 3 days before and 2 to 3 days after. So you're looking at like February 3rd to maybe like February 8th. That's a time to allow self-expression. It's a time to allow yourself to explore areas you've never given yourself permission to look at before. Oh, I can't do that. I'm the mother, or I need to make a living, or I can't just go do that. No, that's our time to say, I want to do this. Freedom and independence. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Maybe I'm not going to quit my job, but maybe I'm going to take a class online. I'm going to find a way to bring something into my life that makes me feel renewed. And I love that. That's very exciting to me.
Oh,
Like,
it is.
what are we all going to do that's new and different?
Well, and it's really cool that you say that, because when I was focusing, okay, Spirit, what do we got to say about February? What I heard was tell them to say yes. Tell them to say yes. Whatever shows up, get into the habit of saying yes. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When someone is asking you to do something, we'll say above and beyond, and you don't even have the time, think of it as Spirit is asking you. Say yes. Just say yes, because you don't know what doorway of opportunity you just opened by showing up, even when you didn't want to, right? So even if it feels a little heavy or sparky, or I don't have the time, or I just don't feel like it, or you're feeling irritated, say yes and show up anyways. And I do understand that concept on an energetic scale as well, because think of how good it feels when we help someone, right? So when you show up and you say yes, you watch how that will literally change the energy that's happening within you. So whether it's a doorway of opportunity, or whether you just get that buzz that we get as light workers when we help someone in need, or when we do show up and complete what's been asked of us, there is that sense of fulfillment that comes from that. And so I think that we do need to be finding these different ways to fill ourselves by filling humanity at the same time, because it is a collaborative effort. And that's the other thing that I saw for 2024. Collaboration beats competition every single time. I said that right before we got online. It really does, because and how that came up was we're talking about, you know, how much we do in the course of a day and our schedules, because we're just doing it all by ourselves, you know. But the collaborative energy, it's almost like, ah, okay, you know, you got someone to lean on, someone to throw ideas up against, and that feels amazing. It builds an energy of its own, right? And so people got to remember, get out of the fiercely independent, it's only, um I got to do it all by myself. No. Ask and you shall receive. Send it out to the universe. I need help with something. And you watch how it'll show up. It'll show up in a multitude of ways. And what we're asking for, we're going to start seeing it coming back to us at an accelerated rate. So, like I said in January, y'all get clear on what you want. Get clear. Figure out that now at the beginning of the year, because 2024 will speed up. With each month that we get deeper into this year, you're going to see it speed up. And you're also going to start to see the manifestations, good and bad, if you don't know how you're doing it, right? If you're all willy-nilly and you don't know how to properly manifest, that could be a little bit stormy for people who don't know how to ask the universe in a way that is for the greater good, right? Because our attitude and our energy is what we're sending out with that message, with that request. So if our energy is not in alignment with what it is that we're asking for, we're not going to get it. We'll just get a whole pile of static. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Aquarius is fiercely independent and wants freedom. But always remember, Aquarius is also the sign that rules groups and friendships. So this is a time of reaching for others, connecting with others. You know, it's a wonderful time to look for like-minded people. Yes, you may be looking for like-minded people in the spiritual, metaphysical community, but you may also be looking for like-minded people who love to garden or are parents of teenagers. Oh my goodness. If you are the parents of a teenager, February may be a little bit challenging for you, as teenagers are pretty independent anyway on a regular
yeah.
Tuesday. And now we got all this Aquarian energy coming in. So don't, yeah, you put it very well. You don't have to go it alone. Don't be afraid to join with people, join some kind of group. And one of the things that we now have access to are online groups of people all over the world who are helping each other, who are joining together. You know, a few years ago, this wouldn't have been possible for us to do this in online in two different countries, kind of thing. So I see a lot more people joining groups, looking for wisdom online, looking for other people who can help them and support them and understand them. And I'm going to say, and we talked about this a little bit in January. In April, we have Jupiter conjunct Uranus. And we're going to start to feel the effects of that in March. March, April, and May, to me, are the three most volatile, crazy roller coaster months of the year. And so March is not that far away. You know, that is like 5 weeks, you know, something like that. And once we start to move into March, it's like boom, boom, boom. Like every
Yes.
few weeks, something else is happening. Something else is happening. Before you can even fully process one thing, the next thing happens.
Yes.
And so if we're not grounded, if we're not sure of ourselves, if we're not already in a stable place, it can really throw us
Mhm.
off our game. So more than ever, you need to make sure that you're meditating, that you're on point, that you know what you're manifesting, that you know what your values are, that you know what you're looking for.
Mhm.
Because I don't know about politics in Canada, although I saw Trudeau being out of office by next year, and I think you saw the same thing.
I
We're on
did.
the same page there. But I am going to say, I think our presidential election is going to be Looney Tunes
It's
this
gonna
year.
be days of
It's
our
like,
lives down there. Like it's gonna
yes,
be total soap opera, like
oh,
entertainment. Um,
oh,
you know,
it's
to
like
be
you
on
can't
TV because
believe this.
yeah, it's awful.
So yeah, make sure you're not getting caught up in the wildness,
Mhm.
because regardless, I don't know if it's like this in Canada. In the US in the 70s, there used to be a law that said that any kind of news reporting had to be balanced and had to present both sides. And then
Yes.
President Nixon rescinded that law. So now we have, oh yeah, that's not a law in the United States anymore. So
Wow.
now we have news stations all over the spectrum, the left, the right, the middle, up and down, all over the place. And each station has its own tone, has its own desire to get you to think this way.
Mhm.
And it used to be that news stations were considered to be like a public service. We're going to report the news.
Mhm.
Now, those news stations are being asked to show viewers, to compete with the regular sitcoms and dramas and everything else on television. How come you're not having your viewers? How come this other station is beating us? Now it's a ratings game for the
Yes.
news. And the way the news stations, and I'm not picking on any one, I'm saying all of them, the way they get you to tune in is to get you to be scared. The sky is falling, the sky is falling, the bottom's dropping out. You watch this, watch this. Don't feed into the fear. Don't let them do that to you. You know, I watch them all, you know, and I pick bits and pieces of all of them, and they're all doing the same thing. And so you have to make sure what sounds right to you, what says truth to you, what do you pick up and what do you let go? Because as this kind of wild roller coaster ride starts, I think the United States is going to see some things happen in this election year that we've never seen happen before. I'm not exactly sure what all that is, but I think we're going to see things that our Constitution never addressed. Like we never expected this to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So that keeps us on our toes. It's part of the new energy coming in, but we can't keep getting upset at everything we see on television. If you find yourself getting upset at the news, stop watching the news. Get your information from newspapers if you still read newspapers or other forms of news coming at you, but make sure that you are understanding that not every single thing that is being reported is absolutely 100% unbiased.
Yes. 100%.
Everybody's got their angle, so to speak. I hate it, but there you go.
Well, and ours is even more on the side of the government because ours is government heavily government funded. And they have really, really heavily censored independent journalists, all the little guys that were trying to speak up and speak out. Oh, yeah, they quashed them. And so Canada is really, really bad with censorship. Yeah, you got to be careful what you say up here. It's insane. So yeah, I pray that and I'm surprised that hasn't been presented in Congress before for you guys because it seems like the Trudeau government and the Biden government are in lockstep with the same team because they're being governed by the same above body above them. Like there's a higher government that we don't know about. If we think that Biden is running the show and we think Trudeau is running the show, no, they're just taking commands. And so that it's very similar. So you will see censorship try to make its rear its ugly head. But Americans, the one thing I love about America, God, I wish I lived there. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I live in Canada. It's bad. But the one thing I love about Americans is they got balls. They really do. They stand in their power. They speak their truth. They will die on that hill and they don't care. I love that attitude. You should be able to stand in your power and speak your truth and protect your family and have a choice. Like it's I love the way Americans fought back. We saw that up in Canada during the convoy. We saw that kind of spirit come out, and it was wonderful to be a part of that. It was amazing, actually. The energy was amazing. It was the most patriotic I've ever seen Canada, actually, and that I've ever had a chance to be a part of. It was just awesome. But you don't see that up in Canada. You don't see that fighting spirit of we need to come together, do what it takes, put our differences aside, and take on the monster. We just don't see that up in Canada. You got to be really, really, really fed up to do any sort of thing like that in Canada. That's just not, I don't know, we say sorry a lot and we say please
You have to remember
a lot.
the United States was born in revolution. It was basically born in violence. And and I love my country, and I love that energy you're talking about. But the United States can be very in your face kind of thing. It's known for
Yeah. But you
retiring.
guys get
Sorry,
laws changed that way. You get laws changed that way.
you get lost
We don't
change.
get anything changed here. We finally had the biggest protest that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and it did nothing. They got squashed. He took out the emergency act on us, like, and froze bank accounts and seized property. Like, it was sad, Susan. It was really sad. So I'm sure that if that kind of stuff, behavior from your government was happening in the States, it would have been a different outcome.
Oh,
So
you're going to see demonstrations and protests and marches all over the United States
now
come 2024 going on.
let me just interrupt and just say I am not one for violence. I believe in peaceful protests. I
Mhm.
believe in having the right to defend democracy, but not when someone has to die for it. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in civil war. I believe in a peaceful way of standing in your power and letting your voice be heard. So y'all don't be taking what I'm saying the wrong way here. Okay, sorry.
Protest and violence are two different things.
Yes, yes, 100%.
And peaceful protest is something the United States has a long history of. But our nation is also known as a violent one.
Mm,
So many people, as soon as you hear the United States and marches or protests, images of violence come up.
yeah.
But there's many, many, many protests and marches in Washington. You never hear anything about them because they were peaceful. The majority are peaceful. You can make a change in government, a change in laws through peaceful protests. And I'm going to say, I was working with one of my astrology students, and I was teaching her about mundane astrology. And mundane astrology is looking at the charts of different countries and leaders and world events to put together what's going to happen. And I had the chart of the United States, and I ran the chart of Canada, and I was comparing them. And I was like, because Canada is a Cancer country as well. They have their sun in Cancer, just like the United States. And I was like, they have so many similarities, and yet the way they're expressing them is so different. I
Yes.
think Canada is going to see a lot more marches this year, a lot more protests, a lot more. We don't like this. We want this changed. I think you're going to start to hear more regular citizens want their voices to be heard.
And you know what? We need that. We need that. This guy is taxing us to death, Susan. It is insane how much this new carbon tax is costing us. And it is literally tax upon tax upon tax upon tax. It's insane. Like the price of housing up here, we're in a housing crisis, but yet he keeps letting immigration in with open floodgates, and that's fine. I'm all for diversity, but you got to have a place to put everybody. And when your own
Where's the balance?
citizens are out on the street and cannot afford to eat or clothe themselves, we got a problem. And he does not seem to care whatsoever. It's just like a couple weeks ago, we got an emergency broadcast to unplug everything, turn your electricity as low as you can, unplug your EV car if you got an EV car because the grids are about to crash in Alberta. Yeah. And our prime minister is like, he's crazy if he thinks solar and wind power in Alberta can actually power up this province, because we get beautiful Chinooks or Chinooks without wind, believe it or not. And we also get these really cold snaps where just a couple weeks ago, it was minus 45, minus 49 in certain places with the wind chill. And then there was no wind, where it was minus 37 with no wind. So the sun is coming, the sun is going, but there's no wind for any other source of power. And we had a few days of that, and all of a sudden we were getting an emergency warning that the grid is going to crash if people don't start unplugging. Yeah, so it's insane what Trudeau is doing to this country with his green initiative. There's a whole agenda behind that. I should do a separate video on that, Susan. I know we're only supposed to be talking about February here, but I see so much that I just want to bang my head against against the wall, especially with these EV vehicles. Yes, okay, great. They're great for the environment, but they don't work in -40. They don't work in extreme temperatures like we get up here, right? And when I looked into that, it's part of the World Economic Forum's agenda, which Chrystia Freeland and Trudeau are all a part of. It is to put people in 15-minute cities where you are either walking, you're
I've
taking
heard
a bike,
about that.
or you're taking a bus, and you can get to anything in 15 minutes. And only specific people and on I don't know, at specific times are allowed to leave your 15-minute city. No one will be able to travel. And how are they going to stop that? Well, guess what? Those electric vehicles can be stopped on a dime. They can repossess themselves. They're automatic vehicles that can drive themselves. Of course, they can stop and prevent you from leaving a certain checkpoint and turn off, right? Like they don't want us flying. Only the elite they want to fly. And then you hear about how much Trudeau is whipping around the world and going to Jamaica at Christmas on his jet, with all of the security that's paid for by Canadian taxpayers. I say this with a smile on my face, but God, if you knew what I feel inside. But
Not
so changes have to take place, and how changes take place is by people standing in their power. So if it takes Aquarius to push through and get through to Canadians to, okay guys, it's time, and how we can stand up is with our vote. For you guys it's this year, for us it's the year after. So we really need to do the background checks on the people who we're voting for, because we're voting with a whole paradigm, with a whole reality that they want to bring in. If the World Economic Forum has bragged about infiltrating all the countries, they've put their people from the young globalist school that he's got going on into all of the different countries. He was caught bragging, not caught, he did it on live TV, saying he has infiltrated the cabinet tree. And so it's that ideology that we're going to see popping up everywhere. And if you look at New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the States, the UK, there's the UN countries are all about this ideology. They're all in bed together. And so yeah, that's a
But
whole
we're moving into an energy, and I'm gonna say
but it's
sorry, listeners, because
timeline.
you're gonna be sick of me talking about Pluto and Aquarius because it's gonna start showing up everywhere. And one of the things I said is we're gonna start seeing the populace of these countries fight back against the rob the poor to give to the rich, which is what we've all sort of been dealing with, because most of us are in the bottom part of this, we're the ones being robbed to give to the rich. They're going to start fighting back economically, politically. Where's our power? Our government's not representing us. We're going to start demanding more. And when I say us, I mean both Canada and the US and a lot of westernized industrial nations. We're going to start demanding more accountability from our government. We're going to start demanding change. Now, this is a beginning. Remember, this is going to be here for 20 years, but we're going to make a difference. We're going to see changes. Whether those changes last throughout our lifetime, who knows? The United States has all these laws about campaign finance, and you can't do this or that. But I laughingly say it's like a contest. Every time they enact a new law to try to keep it honest, they find another way to get around it, and under it and over it. Well, it didn't say this, so we'll do it this way. It's a constant struggle between the people and the government. And we're going to see that struggle, even in westernized, mostly peaceful nations, intensify in peaceful ways. People are just going to be ready to speak up, say, I don't like this. This isn't fair. I want to talk to my representative. Who am I going to vote for? This is not acceptable to me. And I don't see it necessarily being violent. I just see it being loud.
Good.
I see it being loud. The United States is a pretty loud country on a regular day. So when we turn up the volume, I don't even know what that's going to look like. I don't know that Canada is going to be saying sorry so much. I think they're going to be turning up the volume too.
Good. Good. You know what? My dad taught me one thing. God bless him. He taught me that even one voice matters. I can't even remember what the issue was about, but I had an issue that was just burning inside of me. And so he took me to my MLA, and I think maybe I was like 16 years old at the time. He take me to my MLA, and he sat me down with my MLA. He made the appointment and everything, came with me. And all I remember, I don't remember what the issue was, but all I remember out of that meeting was what the MLA said to me on the way out. He says, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention." He said, "Because for every one person who comes in and actually talks about it," he goes, "you represent about 1,500 people who won't, who couldn't be bothered
Wow.
to bring it to my attention." And so I was like, wow, okay, you know. So I thank my dad for showing me that, your voice matters. It matters,
Your
it
voice
matters, it
matters.
matters. Even if it's within your community, your friends, your getting on a platform like this, it matters. It matters. So we all need to find our truth and stand in it and speak it.
And be consistent.
Yes.
Don't give up just because you didn't get a call back or it didn't make a difference that one time. This is a transformational period in the world's history, and we're a part of it. We get to be a part of it. And if you're born and aware and watching this, you came in for this, to experience this, these changes, this freedom. So yes, it's a bold time and a powerful time, but ultimately very liberating. So, yeah, chances are you're going to hear something about this every month between now and the end of the year.
But it's true. And it does, it applies to each and every month because I can feel traces of it, not traces of it, chunks of it in each month. And I can see how it'll show up in a person's life, in their life on an individual scale, and then how the collective will impact that individual, if that makes sense. It's all connected.
Absolutely.
It really is connected.
All
But
connected.
one of the other things that Spirit showed me this morning when I was I was getting ready for work, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to say with Susan today? Because I try to work on it at different points, throughout the month. And the one thing I did see was a visual of the dominoes, all the dominoes all falling, and that and them falling where they may. So something has been set in motion in such a massive, massive way. And I think that by the end of the year, we're gonna really see what has been set in motion. But there's been, I want to say, at the end of January, um, you know, going into February, that's when that energy is, things are being set in motion. So, on a personal
Yeah,
scale, you guys, watch your mouth with people, try not to stick your foot in it too often. Really watch how you present your energy, or it can come back at you and bite you. That's how I would take that interpretation of the dominoes, um, on a personal scale. But on a collective scale too, there's also something that's coming down the line.
absolutely. Absolutely. I will say I am busy working on my predictions for February right now. I still haven't finished them. January has just been a crazy month, super, super busy. So I'm still working on them, but you can check out my predictions on my website, exploreastrology.com, and there are free predictions for every sign. So you can see what's going on with you and get like a little heads up for the month, because we've got a lot of Aquarian energy coming in. Not only has been impacting with this Pluto thing, but Pluto is going to impact Mercury. It's going to impact Venus. It's going to impact Mars. So there's a lot of moving parts and volatile energy. But again, it can be very exciting. It doesn't have to be something that blows up in your face. And it's one of the reasons I'm glad we do this, because as we do this, I look at it as us telling the people listening, don't step there.
Yeah.
You don't have to do
Yes.
that. You don't have to step in it.
Yeah.
Here's how you go around it.
Yeah. you can avoid it. You can
You
totally
can avoid it.
see it coming, right? So knowledge is power for sure. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Susan. Was there anything else that you wanted to add for the month of February? I know that we're coming up for our time.
Yeah, I know we're almost out of time. No, I'm gonna say in February, and it's not even on my website yet, but sometime in February, so keep checking my website. I'm gonna do a little 1 hour talk about healing your astrological saboteur, because there's a place in the chart about where we sabotage ourselves, where we shoot ourselves in the foot. This is where we drunk call our ex at 2 o'clock in the morning, or decide to go out on a bender the night before the big interview, like we do it to ourselves. So I'm going to talk about that, like what that is and how you heal that. And I'm starting my beginning astrology class in February. Aquarius rules astrology. Aquarius rules all the new agey kind of stuff. So we're going to see over these next 20 years, astrology gain much more respect. It's going to become much more widespread. Don't be surprised if in 10 or 15 years you go for a job interview and they ask you what your sign is.
Wouldn't that be an interesting thing to have on
Interesting.
the resume or the application? That'd be cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, no, that was all I was going to mention. It's going to be a busy month, an active month, and I hope everybody has a great month.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And how can people get a hold of you if they'd like to book a personalized session with you?
Just go to my website, exploreastrology.com, and it's got all the different kind of readings I do and contact information and everything else. So I
Perfect.
have such fun every month when we sit here and talk. It just
You.
flows.
Me too. It's
I
awesome.
love it. I'm so glad we do this. I am so glad you have me on. I get to chit chat with somebody who's on that wavelength with me.
Totally, and I feel so blessed and grateful for to be able to do this with you because it's fascinating how we both can feel it and see it, and it's in the charts, and I feel it in the energy and see it in remote viewing, and it comes together. It's fascinating. It really, really, really is. Well, thank you everybody for watching. And if you would like to book an appointment with me, my website is www.patriciamona.com. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It also helps to, oh, and share the video. It helps to do something to the algorithms. I'm learning about this stuff, so I don't know anything about optimization, so I won't pretend to. Just like and subscribe if you want to, if you like the content. That's all that matters to me. So God bless you, Susan. Until next month, thank you so much. God bless and take care.
You have a great month, and I'll see you next month.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everybody.